Good morning. We would like to introduce Miguel. Miguel is born in Medellin, Colombia, and moved to South Florida at the age of 4. He attended undergrad at the University of Florida, and he went to law school at University of Miami, Florida through and through. After law school, he went to work for one of the largest firms in the country, working on both business litigation matters, real estate transactions, and mergers and acquisitions. And he recently opened his own law firm, congratulations, where he serves small businesses and entrepreneurs. Miguel is passionate about philanthropy, and having founded the Miguel Perez Law Scholarship at Law, a scholarship geared towards rewarding exceptional first-generational law students. Miguel Perez Legal also contributes to Glory House, a nonprofit determined to fighting human trafficking. Side squirrel note, I just want to say all of that is so exciting. Right now, my daughter is my oldest is in South Africa, and she is interning for a law firm for international sex trafficking law. So it's really cool.
Wow. And she wants to pursue that as a career, lifelong?
She does.
That's amazing.
Hey, so Miguel, we're really grateful that you came on today. And we were kind of talking before we started the show that you really kind of ventured into your own space so that you can be an entrepreneur. And obviously you support other entrepreneurs and small business owners, which is kind of huge because there's a lot of like unknowns, and navigating that whole space when you're like coming into the small business world can be overwhelming and daunting. So it's really cool that you work with those people. What kind of turned you into that direction when you were thriving in the bigger law firm?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, like you mentioned, I have that, entrepreneurial itch that I really wanted to build something for myself. So I always knew starting out, I had to pay my dues, learn the law, the legal profession, and then work for a big organization where I could learn the system, see how it works on the higher end, and then take that and rework it for myself. So I got pretty lucky where I landed. I got to work with Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, mom and pop shops. So I got to kind of see everything. And on top of that, I got to also work on transactional matters, but also litigation, which is very rare. You usually get kind of siloed into one area. But luckily, I got to work on all types of matters. So I kind of see law from the full perspective on the front end of when you're drafting a contract, to defending a contract, to, worst case scenario, you end up in court, which nobody wants that. So I'm very blessed that I got that experience. And there just hit a point where I just wasn't too excited to go to work anymore. I'm sure some people can relate to that. And I just knew I had to make some sort of switch. I thought about it a lot, journaled about it, racked my brain about it, and started connecting with other entrepreneurs. And they finally told me, hey, I think it's time to make that jump. It's going to be tough. It's going to be scary, but you're never going to be satisfied unless you do this. And so far I'm, 3 months in, and it has been a great decision.
That's awesome. What is your like your biggest passion? I know it's helping small businesses, but what is your if you had to give, advice, or what is like your, I don't know, I don't have another word for soapbox. So what is that with regarding your small business practice?
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is you'd like to find an attorney that understands your business, not just, okay, I'm going to protect you legally, not really think about the cost analysis, cost benefit analysis, because sometimes you might start a business and you don't have any capital. You might not need a contract or an operating agreement to start. I do recommend it, but you want an attorney that's going to want to really think about your business, be a general counsel, a business partner, not just an attorney, rack up fees, and then not allow you to do that fledgling entrepreneur that is taking risks and is trying to grow a business. So you want a good balance. So that's where I specialize, is I try to really think about the business as a whole instead of just thinking, okay, I'm going to protect against every eventuality that might happen someday in the future. I try to, let entrepreneurs be entrepreneurs.
you specialize in one business, or do you work with all types of businesses?
So lately it's been real estate. So real estate entrepreneurs, real estate investors. I do have an of counsel, which is sort of like a business partner within my firm, and he specializes in small businesses of all types. So he's the one that can draft up a trust agreement for you in the Cayman Islands if you want. So I go to him if I need something a little bit more robust on the corporate side. I do have experience with mergers and acquisitions, but right now seems like I'm getting funneled into real estate, which I really love.
Yes, and that's how the two of us connected. Was I was having an issue. I had a private money lending deal that went south, and you hopped on right away to help me and walk me through the process. Now, my deal was in Michigan, and I know that you helped me understand what I needed to do. And you primarily practice in Florida. Is that still the case, or are you able to practice in multiple states?
Yeah, so my bar license is in Florida. So for general counsel purposes, just business advice, some legal analysis, I can provide advice, in any state. Um, but when it comes to real estate, mortgages, something a little bit more specialized that's bound by statute, not just contract law, I would have to, stay within the confines of Florida.
Sure, that makes sense. So with the real estate, what type of real estate, like for me, I needed help with my private money lending deal. What other, areas in real estate are people coming to you for?
Yeah, so lately it's been a lot of lease disputes representing both commercial and residential landlords and tenants. That has been a hot topic lately for me. I'm also a title agent in Florida through Old Republic, so I can help, be an escrow agent, title agent, closing agent on, any transaction, as well as on the front end, looking at all the contracts for the transaction as well.
Awesome. And as you know, we love creative transactions. So you do all types of creative closings. Is that correct?
I try to. So my underwriter for title has recommended stay away from sub two deals. Because I do use Old Republic, and sometimes the sub two deals could get a little bit messy. So that's the one type of deal that I wouldn't be able to do for someone. But any other type of creative deal, I'm familiar with, and I'm happy to help with.
Okay. May I ask why they want you to stay away from that?
I think Old Republic is, a tried and true company. It's been around for, I think like over 100 years. I think they just don't want any fingers pointed at a title agent saying, "Hey, you knew that a lender wasn't going to be made aware of the lease being or the mortgage being transferred." And then ultimately, I mean, what I've learned is you can sue anyone for anything, even if there's not, great legal grounds for it. So they just want to, protect the title agents.
Sure, that makes sense.
Kind of circling back to your overview of like looking at everybody's businesses as a whole. First of all, I think that is kind of incredible. I think a lot of people kind of get stuck, at least in our space, in using like boilerplate templates and documents and stuff like that in their business practices. With PMLs or PMPs, private money partners and stuff like that. As a transaction coordinator, a lot of times I'll get people asking me questions like, how do I structure this or how do I do that? And I'm always like, you need to talk to an attorney. Like each situation is so specific. And like you said, it's not just about having a contract, it's about having a contract that can be defended in court. And so I like that you get to know the business owners, you get to know the situation so that you can create things that fit their situation. Do you have like examples of times that people don't really know that they need an attorney, to draft specific documents?
Oh yeah. I see it a lot in the sub two community. There are some great templates. I know the sub two community has attorneys in there, but like I mentioned, you're starting out. Maybe you don't have a lot of capital. Maybe you don't know what you don't know, so you just pull a template from somewhere and use it, and that can work. Maybe it depends if God forbid things do go wrong. You do want a robust contract, but especially in the on the lending side, I see people aren't aware of, usury laws, for example. They're not aware of, the, loan to value ratio that they want to have to really protect their loan. And they might not be aware about how to secure a loan properly through a mortgage or, deed of trust, for example. So that's what I, really want to educate people on. And that's what I see a lot is you might see someone making a loan for 4 months for 40% return. And in most states, that's against the law, both civilly and criminally. So at least in Florida, for example, if a loan is under $500,000, the limit is 18% per year. And if it's over, it's 25%. And, you could read that, look it up on Google, and that might be fine. But then you have to look at the case law as well. And when you get to higher, private money deals, hard money deals, you're going to have the lenders bake in, lender points. So, 2% for originating the loan, $1,000 for underwriting it. So the case law states that the courts will actually bake in those lender points into the interest rate. So you might think, okay, I'm going to set it at 24% right there, under 25%, but then you charge 2 or 3 points, and then that's going to be above the usury limit. So the court is going to interpret that as, illegal, so to speak. And then also what I would include in my private money deals is language saying, in the event that this loan is above the usury limit, the lender agrees to, reduce the interest charge, for example, just to kind of add more of a buffer.
That's great advice. I just had a deal go through or try to go through yesterday that the borrower was trying to convince the lenders that they would create the documents to secure everybody. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. And so I think that unfortunately, there's a lot of education. And I know that in our community, it is taught, to use attorney drafted documents to make sure everything gets recorded. I mean, we've seen it to where people have attorney drafted documents, but then they're never recorded, or they're not looking at a title report before they send the funds to make sure that there's not 3 other liens on the property. And so I know that there is a lot of education in the community. It's definitely PACE pushes not to do unsafe practices, but it seems like it's just definitely not getting to all the right parties. And the one thing I've seen a lot is about the usury laws is everyone trying to charge 30-40% interest. And that's not enforceable, and there's struggles there. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. It's definitely a huge issue. I'm sure you see all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'll add to that, there are ways to get higher returns, but there's always a cost for everything. If you want a 30-40% return, you're going to give up that security. You're going to give up that mortgage interest, right? Which is the protection you have. You can structure it as maybe a joint venture agreement where, hey, I'm part of this deal with you. And then when we cash out, I'll get X return. It's an investment, so to speak, rather than a loan. So that's one way of doing it, but you do give up the ability to secure your loan or, you're against an asset that, you can foreclose on should the deal go wrong.
Absolutely. So besides everyone in Florida reaching out to you for, overview of situations and hopefully way before, the other thing that Julie and I have seen as we're in contact with a lot of other lenders is that everyone kind of, when there's default, they don't take action. And so I think it's really important that everyone's kind of business minded in that process, that, you go through those steps as you need to. If you want to give some leniency because there's communication and delays happen, et cetera, that can't be months and months of, what I've seen recently is that a lot of people are in a second lien position lending. And it's not until the first lien is in foreclosure that then they're trying to do something so that they don't lose their funds. So at what part of that would you advise someone to reach out to you to start looking at curing that and figuring out a solution?
I think it depends on the relationship you have with the borrower. If you're able to just reach out to them and, see, hey, what's going on, I would do that first, right? And then usually people kind of give you the runaround, they drag you along for a bit, which I see a lot, unfortunately. So I think after probably 2 or 3 weeks, I would start really pushing and go to an attorney and maybe send out a demand letter just to see it on, a borrower receives that on letterhead. They see an attorney drafted it. It's like, okay, we mean business. And that doesn't mean you have to go foreclose right away, spend all that money. I did bank workouts for, some of the biggest banks in the country, and the banks will negotiate with you. Like they're going to try to find a happy medium for you, because at the end of the day, lenders just want to get paid. They're in the business of cashing a monthly check, right? They don't want to foreclose on you. They want to try to find some workaround. So they might, defer interest, or they might lower the payment for a bit. So if you're a lender, try to think about, okay, well, what is your business model? You're lending, you want to get steady income. Foreclosing might be difficult, but ideally you underwrote it so that if you did have to foreclose, you're going to, make some money on it, or at least, break even. So I would say don't sit on it. Have an attorney ready. You can have an attorney that will have, a sample demand letter drafted for you, and it could just be plug and play. The first one might be a little bit upfront to tailor it to what you really want. But then after that, it could be, pretty simple. So I wouldn't sit on it.
That's great advice. Do you have any other advice, or before we wrap it up, or anything you wanted to put out there?
No, nothing that I can really think of. I guess I'm thinking one thing I would say is just start off doing good business. I think, especially in the sub two community, names get around, reputations get around. So really, you don't want to step over, a nickel to get to a penny, right? So that's what I would say. And maybe I'm biased just because I see the back end of everything. So I'm just all day dealing with disputes. But I do also deal with a lot of people that honor agreements on a handshake and will pay out a ton of money just on a handshake. So try to be that person.
I love that. But I agree with everything you're saying, just because I have such personal experience with this. Just to talk about real quick is, one of the first things you told me was that Michigan is a lien holder state, and we just did a promissory note and a deed of trust. Our interest rate was way too high, had no idea. So it's at 11% max that we could get. And I think the return was around 25%. And, people just make up these deals to fill in this paperwork, and then it doesn't work out. And I don't think it's because you're on the litigation side that you see so much of it. I honestly believe that a ton of, bad lending deals go south. Like I would love to see a ratio. Is it like 50% that go through successfully versus how many do not? Because more and more I see so much of this happening, and it's by the same lender. And so I just wanted to ask you, what are some things that people can do to vet, the borrowers? Not only have solid paperwork. And I believe now, because of what happened, I'll always have an attorney do all of my documentation. And then that will be the attorney that's willing to step in if something happens. But also one lesson I learned was, don't lend on a property that you don't want to own or potentially own down the road. That's something that we didn't think about. I mean, heck, we're about to have 4 acres in the middle of Michigan. Never even been there. It wasn't even something that I had thought about.
Yeah. So to your question about, vetting the borrowers, I recently just got my mortgage loan origination license, the NMLS license, which is to allow me to originate loans on the residential side. I mainly got that just to learn the laws of the residential side. And to protect consumers, there are a lot more robust laws rather than on the commercial side. And I think you can, on the commercial side, really take some notes from the residential side, because at the end of the day, those laws were created to prevent, a meltdown that happened, like the one that happened in 2008. And something that lenders have to do on the residential side is that, they have to review bank statements and make sure there's proof of funds, which a lot of times, even on huge commercial deals, I'll see proof of funds that I know aren't real, So you have to actually see, okay, you have $1 million in the bank account, but when was that deposited? Was that just deposited a week ago because your buddy sent it to you just so you could show proof of funds? Maybe you don't have a steady income because you're an entrepreneur, so you don't have a W-2. How long have you been making $10,000 a month? Did you just start last month? And before that, you were making, $2,000 or $3,000 a month. So you really want to robustly look at the bank statements, for example, look at the credit score, everything that, just normal due diligence. Like when I'm applying to, rent a house, for example, the landlord's going to look at all that stuff too. So on the lending side, the commercial side, I would, stress doing that as well.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like in real estate transactions, a lot of people I know ask for like HUDs or, previous track records, things like that. Do you have an opinion on that being a good way to vet somebody?
Yes. Yeah. Especially so on the hard money side, I've usually only done, 7 figures and above. So these are lenders loaning out hundreds of millions of dollars a year on multiple deals, and they want someone with experience. If you don't have experience, they want someone on your team with experience. They want to see the proof of funds, and they want to secure it, secure the loan under an asset. And even I've seen personal guarantees and even pledges of your membership interest in a company. So those lenders really secure their interests, and they're not making 30, 40%. They're making 9, 10, 11, 12% per year. And then they charge those 2 or 3 points up front on the, origination side, and then the underwriting fee. And then they really have a nice secured safety net. So it just depends. It's a give and a take, right? More risk, more reward. But if you want to make a steady return, I would really recommend, doing your due diligence.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. One thing too I want to add is, at least on the legal side, if you're going to find an attorney, unless that attorney has like 45 years of experience in all these types of areas, don't trust an attorney that tells you, hey, I do tax, I do bankruptcy, I do litigation. Most attorneys specialize in 2 or 3 areas. So you want to be careful, right? You don't want someone that claims to be an expert in everything and that knows their limits, because you want the best representation. So that's what I try to do. I try to say where my limits are. So if you come to me with a tax question, I'm not a tax attorney. Those tax attorneys are very specialized. I will send you to a tax attorney. I have great recommendations. I have a team of CPAs that I work with that I recommend to my small business owners I work with. I have the corporate attorney I work with, and then a trust and estates and probate attorney as well. So that's what I try to do, is be candid. I know my limits, and if I can't help you, then I'll recommend you to someone that can.
Oh, wow. Your transparency is huge. And just because, not to keep bringing up my Michigan deal, but I literally called several attorneys, and I started with one and now I'm ending with another because of this exact reason. And this other one is able to get this done in such a quickly manner because he has the experience. This is what he does for a living, as to where the other one seems like he does everything. And we were about to foreclose on the whole deal, and it was going to take about a year. This other attorney is now able to get it done because we're doing a deed in lieu, which is something that Amanda had brought up to me, but I didn't even think about, but neither did this other attorney. And it's just because he doesn't practice, this type of law. So I think that is very important, is find the right attorneys and utilize them for, what their niche is, because that is key. And I don't know, maybe it's possible that you grow your niche and you specialize in more things as you grow, but I think it's fantastic that you have a team of people that is diversified, and whether that's you or not, you can point them in another direction with somebody that is, the best in that field that they're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. And my business partner and I implement a fractional general counsel model as well. So you don't have to pay $300, $400 an hour like at other firms. Engage the attorney and have it be a whole process. You can just have us on retainer, and we can set a certain fee. We have different tiers. So if you just want to shoot me an email with a question, I can answer it real quick, or he can answer it real quick. That way, if you just have something that you're not sure on, you try to Google it, ChatGPT, and you can't figure out the answer, you can come to us and we can figure it out. And if we can't figure it out, like I said, we'll send you to someone that can. But there's a fine line, right? I have my specialty, I have my experience, but I'm also a trained attorney. So I know how to find answers, but I also have to know my limits. So you got to walk a fine line there.
Sure.
Let me ask about that. So in our space, obviously, if someone worked with you on the general counsel retainer of sort, the reality is that most real estate investors own properties throughout the country. So even if you could give broad advice, kind of similar to when you encouraged Julie, what to look for and who to talk to, et cetera, are you able to do that with other investors if they have situations in other states? And like, do you have a network that broad that if you needed to refer someone to another, at least it's kind of a handshake, right? Like it's different than cold calling lawyers to find someone to help you.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my prior firm had 750 attorneys across the country, so I could always tap into that network. And I'm a part of some other referral networks as well that I could tap into. But yeah, I would really want to send you to someone that I know and trust. So if you needed someone in Wisconsin, I didn't have someone there that I trusted, I'd probably recommend that you try to find them yourselves, or I could vet them myself. But yeah, that general counsel service is the same that you would find in a bigger corporation where the general counsel kind of manages other attorneys, manages other just ideas, and does baseline due diligence. Because like I said, I'm barred in Florida, so I have to stay within that lane, but I can provide some guidance to point you in the right direction.
That's fantastic. Well,
one last question, and then we can wrap it up. I wanted to just find out, what are your goals for this year, since you're 3 months in, and like, where do you see yourself in a year from now?
Yeah, so I actually have on my wall over there my goals set out for the year. So I really want to build a deep and sturdy foundation. So I'm, giving up trying to make a ton of money right away because I really want to build that foundation. So for the next year, I want to really dive into the philanthropy. I'm, establishing good connections on the philanthropy side. So a percentage of everything I make goes to 2 or 3 trusted nonprofits, a scholarship that I founded. And that's something that I did through, business planning and a workshop that I also run on the side. Philanthropy is just something that's going to be a part of my life forever. So I want to establish that now. Also, I want to really get the systems robust in my company so that I can step away and just manage other attorneys in my office when I'm ready. So that's the goal for the next year, is to grow the philanthropy, grow the title side as well. I want to get really good at closings and be able to instruct someone else on how to do the closings as well. Hire 2 or 3 attorneys under me. And then, yeah, I love talking to people. I love connecting with people. So I really want to dive into that. But first, I have to really set a foundation so I can step away and really work on the networking side.
I love that. I love that you journal. I love that you have your goals written down, because I just know it's so important to know where you're headed and what you need to do first. Not everybody does that. They kind of just hit the ground running, and then they're like, wait a second, I need to get systems in place. I need to do this. And what am I working for? Rather than a lot of people just see like, I need to make money now. So I think you are absolutely doing it correctly, and you're going to be so successful. And I know we look forward to working with you and sending anybody your way that we know that you can help. And because we all are in the state of Florida, so that's where a majority of our network is, which is awesome. And I'm so, in a weird way, I'm so thankful that I met you because of the problem that I had. And so, yeah, I'm just super excited for you. And I'd love to follow up with you again in a year from now and see where you're at.
Yeah. I have a feeling everyone here is going to be doing really well in a year. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Amanda, Julie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being on here. We really appreciate you as well. And we'll definitely be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.